Cool. Well, I think we might as well rip right into it, Matt Costa. Nice to see you. Are you piping in from Huntington Beach, California?
I'm in Laguna Beach. I live in pretty close to there.
Okay, nice, man. Well, I've been following you. I got really into you when I was in college. I don't, whenever that was. And you were, I was a wee man in college, just trying to figure out how to tour, and like play music. And you were kind of one of the bands I latched onto. I'd go see at like the High Noon Saloon in
Oh yeah.
Madison, Wisconsin, and yeah, just have kind of followed along ever since. And recently, you took kind of a mini musical hiatus, and you're putting out films. Is that kind of the forefront of your arts brain right now?
It is, yeah. And I've been doing music in accompaniment with the films, which has been kind of the musical outlet for myself in that way.
Okay. And while you were kind of in the heat of touring, I remember you were signed on some bigger record label and being put on really nice tours all over the country and then doing your own headline tours. Were you also doing film on the side there? Were you doing your own music videos? I remember the music video for Cigarette Eyes kind of was pretty, that was like the jam I really latched onto from you.
Oh, thanks. Well, actually, I those videos, the early videos I did was with Emmett Malloy, and so they also ran the label that was called Brushfire. And so he's an incredible filmmaker. And during that process, I learned a lot and I got to experience a lot doing music videos with him.
Okay. So he was kind of like your arts mentor as far as the visual side.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, he was he went to film school and things and basically was like early on was like film schooling me up before I really
Nice.
even knew what uh before I really even knew anything about that. So he'd clue me into things, and then I would just start to research stuff and just get really inspired.
Yeah, I watched a bit of your film right before we logged on. Remind me the name again?
Well, the most recent one is one called Catabatic Flight.
What'd you film that on? Obviously, you have a cameraman shadowing you, kind of making the film. What are you shooting it on? Is that film? What is that?
Yeah, it's a it's a 16 millimeter. That one is a Russian one. It's a Krasnogorsk 16 millimeter film. And so there were two cameras. There was I think the other filmer was using um, another 16 millimeter, a Bolex or something like that, um, and then we it was kind of between the two. And there was also a Red that was doing some of the hi-fi stuff. But my basic premise behind that was that I wanted to do these shorts, like mini 16 millimeter shorts within the larger context of the film and score those. And then the Red stuff was more following me along kind of on that journey. So it was a documentation of sorts.
What's the learning curve to like properly working one of those old school cameras?
Well, I think the most important thing is just getting your light readings, and so just making sure exposure is good, and then making sure you have the right film in there, and then you just kind of uh, and then you develop it, and and you make sure make sure it turns out all right. It's more fun actually. I find that stuff because there's a lot, digital stuff is incredible. I do stuff on digital cameras as well, but also a lot of what the colors and things that get brought out in those have such a nice warmth and nostalgic feel that there's it's a little more work going into the front end of it when you're setting it up and having to load the camera. That's another thing too, just making sure loading it on the spot and stuff like that. If you're on the edge of a cliff or something and you're just trying to like you have kind of heavy backpack full of stuff, trying to load it up when you run out of film in a pertinent moment, that kind of stuff is more tricky, but it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, film is like it's magic when it works, but I just bought a film camera in I was traveling playing a couple shows in South Africa, and I
Cool.
found a film camera for like $50, and so I went around and I was like shooting around the city, downtown Cape Town, just I what I thought were going to be great shots, and I have no experience with this, and I'm such a chump with film cameras. Like, I didn't open it right. It got exposed to a little light. I get all the photos back and they're like mostly shot. And I'm like, ah,
Oh man.
yeah, brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no fun. I think that, with the yeah, obviously you want to make sure that you're not, you know, light obviously leaking in is a big deal. But that being said too, especially with the film stuff, I love when opening up the camera in the middle of shooting and stuff too, so the light does come in and blows some stuff out, and then
Hmm.
it creates cool dynamic effects that you don't want to like, obviously you don't want the whole thing to be like that, but those kind of those special things really kind of add to the dynamic of the piece um that I any piece I think, but I for the stuff I do, I lean into that because I think it's a pretty cool um um stylistic choice. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been like really into like the analog tape machines and the cassette Tascam recorders and stuff on the audio end of things, and it's kind of we're kind of in this interesting terrain now with the onset of just like highly advanced tech, recording equipment, AI. It's easier to make like ultra hi-fi looking perfect stuff, sounding perfect things than it is to, use tape and turn knobs and like get that old analog sound or that analog look. So I think like I don't know if I call it the degradation of sound quality necessarily, but um, to me that's the gold for me right now. That's what's getting me excited because that's the stuff that's hard to make, even though to some it might sound not as sharp or not as perfect.
yeah, well, I think there's, you have a the stuff with higher fidelity things, you have a larger spectrum, to pull from. And so, but it really just pulls you down to just, I think no matter what it is, whatever tool you use, um, it's kind of, if it's inspiring to you, that's the main thing. Like whatever it is, if it inspires you to create and tell a story or to create a sound, then that's what's going to drive you to finish the thing. So I think that that's the most important part is if you're working with something that inspires you, whatever it is, then you're on to something. So
Do you ever write songs and then basically like record them in real time, like immediately after they're finished? And I don't mean just like demoing. I mean like almost using the the improv as part of the process. Like you finish a song, you kind of know what it is. You're maybe 80% on it, and then you just record it and build around it. I feel like that can be such a neat way to record and write after you've been doing stuff for so long because that like there's you almost like make mistakes and they work to your advantage oftentimes artistically because it's something you never would have done consciously. Does that make sense?
totally. Yeah, it does. I also think that um yeah, that's an important part of the process. I think that when someone's first starting out, you make a lot of you make more mistakes because you're figuring it out. And but that's kind of where you're mm, where the gold's at. So when you're first starting out with anything, it's mostly all mistakes because no matter how perfect you try to do it, you're not going to make it perfect. And so you hold on to the little bits where you're like, oh, that worked, that worked, that worked. And then you learn how you did that. But I think sometimes when you can perfect something so much, um, you have to remember to be in those places to embrace your mistakes. And then when you get really, when you have all this recording equipment, whatever it is, if you have tools at your hands and at your disposal that you can just write something off the cuff and you can document in a way that is presentable enough too, then there's some charm in that because a
For
recording
sure.
or anything is just capturing a moment of time. And if you labor over it a lot, that's a great that's you can make really great records, but also too there's something in those split moments that no matter how much you try to recreate it, you'll never recreate that moment. So capturing that, I think, for whatever means, even if it's just for yourself, if you decide to put it out, then even better. I think it's a nice little it's a nice practice to do. And I think that releasing things like that is lets the listener into part of your process. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it takes some nutsack to release stuff that's like not perfect. You know what I mean? Like I got all these songs I'm pumped about, and I think they sound cool and they're weird and they sound old, but I'm like then I listened to it one day. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is going to be great. And then the next day is like, I can't release this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, that's the thing is like totally. But that's I mean, I work with a lot of musicians too, like producing and doing things like that. And I've produced my own stuff and worked with a lot of great producers as well. And I think that a lot of that comes down to just expectation, you know. When you like if your original goal when you're writing something, for me, it's always just like I just want to I want I want to see this idea through or have this, you know, there's I want to create this thing. There's no expectation of like really like I hope that one, you know, one person, a million people, whatever people latch onto this. It's mostly just like I need to get this out of myself and I want it to like sit in the room with me, you know. And so then when I create that, I feel that that's a success. And then as you're creating it, you start to build more expectations, and those expectations can be limiting because then you're afraid to put it out. You know, you're like, I can't put that out because you know you kind of start to second guess or doubt your first instinct of being like this thing's cool, and then you start to think, well, you know, what is does it fit with? You start to hear other songs. You're like, now there's this new song I'm listening to. Is it as cool as that?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it as hi-fi? Is it as lo-fi as that? Is it too much? Is it too little? And then you start to go, well, you know, you have to take yourself back to that original place and say, like, at that moment, this is what I was seeking, and then be okay with putting it out because all the other influences that you have in your life, they're gonna seep in. And no matter what, there's always going to be something that sounds better or worse or cooler or not as cool or whatever it is than whatever you did. And so that's what I try to
Sure.
remember.
Yeah, well said, Matt Costa. And it's there's this weird delay, obviously, between writing, recording, and then actually releasing your album. You know how that goes. Like you're feeling it, you're pumped about something, and then you got to wait a year for the label and get the right agent or build your team or whatever. And all of a sudden you're 2 years older and you got these songs that you made 2 years before, and you still got to be pumped about them. So are you doing anything? I mean, obviously the game has changed. You can kind of do whatever you want now. Are you someone who makes stuff and then just kind of wants to get it out and keep moving forward, or do you like to like labor over work, sit on it, think about it, leave it, come back to it, release it much later?
I find that there's certain songs that and certain certain songs that I write and I'll put away and I'll just kind of let them sit. And then just sorry, I was getting a phone call there. There's certain songs that I sit with and I kind of put them away and then I come back to them over time and I accumulate those as a whole, like what would be like a proper record, you know, like a yeah, my you know, a
Sure.
Matt Costa record or something like that. But I think that when I'm writing, especially now, it's easier to release some stuff quicker, you know, even if you didn't you know, talking about technology and that if you really wanted to, I just sit on my phone and put a song up, a whole song and put it up on social media. That's the release, you know. And I think there's something to that, you know, even just there's yeah, there's I do find it really freeing to be able to release stuff quickly at the same time as holding on to bigger pieces that feel more monumental. It's freeing in that sense because then I'm not holding on to everything.
Hmm.
And then it allows me to move forward and move forward creatively and feel like fulfilled in those ways that sometimes if you're just holding on to all of it, um, you know, like a bounty or something, then
Mm.
that really just that can really feel limiting to me.
Crippling. Yeah. Well, I think there's a romanticism to like laboring over an album for years, and spending a ton of money on it. You heard that story a lot in decades up until this one. Like this band spent 150 grand to finish this record that they started 8 years ago. Wow, how cool. It must be amazing. And then, people hear that story and then maybe it psychs them out and they spend too much time on their own records. But yeah, I think you
Well,
just got to keep making stuff and moving forward.
well, I think that I have conversations with a lot of my creative friends and artists about that stuff, and it's a safe place to be, you know, when you're creating something. It's if you even if you spend however long, a year, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever it is on this thing, it's something that I think the comfort in it is that you, you can always, you can keep evolving it to grow with you, because that's the thing, is you were saying, like, you sit on it for 2 years, you've moved past it, and that's okay. We're made to grow, but a lot of times it's hard to let go of those things. So you want to keep building them with you as you grow, and perfecting them with the things that you learn. And all that stuff is valuable. The things that you learn every day, every month, every year, every decade, is
Yeah.
really valuable to the process. But the most important part, I think, of the process is putting it out there, because you actually really never know what it is, because it's really not up to us to decide. When you put it out into the world decides what it means. And no matter whether it's just a demo on your tape, or whether it's on your phone, or whether it's a record you've slaved over for so much, it's not really up to the artist to decide.
Oh, you cut out for a second there. Give me those last two sentences.
Oh yeah, it's on my phone right here too.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that no matter how long you slave over it, whether it's just a really um whether it's a day, no matter how long
Day
you
or
slave,
year, yeah.
yeah, a day or a year or a decade, no matter how long you slave over it, and how much you put into it, when you put something out, that's the most important part, because it's not up to us to decide as a
Yeah.
creator what it means. It's up to the world and everyone to perceive it. We're just one lens of perception in billions.
Yeah.
And so to think that you have to offer it up to the whole in order to really know, that's bigger part of the process. That's the biggest part of the process.
Do you look back? I think you have like 12 or 13 albums or something. Do you look back at any of your records and regret any of them? Like, I spent too much time on this one. I obsessed about this one too much. I made this album for other people instead of just focusing on what I was pumped about. Anything come to mind, or are you pretty stoked with everything you put out?
Uh, I'm happy with everything I put out, because I put it out. That's the thing. There's and there's some stuff that I wish, I'd love to go back and do another version of that. But, at the time, it led me to where I'm at now, and
Yeah.
I have the insight now. So if I really wanted to do another version of it now, I could. There's some songs I'm like, oh man, I played the bass weird on that. Or like, I didn't put bass on that. Why the hell didn't I put bass on that? That was a dumb
Hmm.
idea.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's like, now I know. I'm like, fuck, the only way that, and also, no matter who tells you what things, you'll get millions of opinions about something, and they're all going to be varying, and you'll
yeah.
never
Hmm.
know how you actually feel until it's out there, and then you see it for yourself. And then, even, like, honestly, like 10 years later, having stuff out 20 years later, songs that were really important to me at the time, maybe they are, but certain ones that I overlooked are more important to me. And I do think that comes down to expectation as well, because I had the least amount of expectation on that song, and therefore, years and years go by, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one, that one actually, I didn't really, I just kind of didn't even think about it at the time. I just did it, and now it means something more to me. So
Sure. So I know you're touring hard for a while, and then you kind of fell off my radar for a couple of years. I don't know if it was just my algorithm or if you were taking a breather. Did you kind of hit a burnout and just have to take a mini break from tour and music, or have you been slogging it the whole way through?
I've been touring the whole way through, and I've been continuing to write. I think I did take a period where I did some wood shedding, and then also I was still touring intermittently through then, but not as much as I was when I was in the first number of years, where
Hmm.
I was hitting it like 200, more than like 260 days a year, which
Oh
is
wow, that's
which is a
brutal.
lot.
Hmm.
It's a lot, I don't even know. Yeah, it's a lot. But then I slowed down from that. And then, I also felt like there were some places where I woodshed it, things that I needed to work on. I was like, oh, I want to understand this. I want to understand that. I want to understand, like, as far as even recording myself too. So I went into just like recording, learning that process, which I think is a great part of songwriting,
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
then you can, like, there's certain things that the tools do inform certain techniques. So I think that was important to be able to understand that. And so I spent some time doing that. And during that time as well, then I started getting into more specifically scoring films too, instead of just having songs that I'd written be licensed in a film.
What are your goals with music moving forward? Talk about that.
Yeah, my goals in music moving forward. Well, um, my goal as a kid when I first started writing songs, I was like, you know what? I just want to be an old man sitting on my porch, playing my guitar and have a lot of great stories to tell. And so I think that it's still that. I think that having a lot of great stories to tell from it and having the music be a catalyst for experience. Um, because without life and without experience, there's no songs. And without having something that's a driving force and a catalyst for those experiences, which is music for me, um, then I think my life would be a lot less rich and full. So kind of just continuing that thought and feeling.
Let's go back to like early Matt Costa, and not to dive into stuff you've really talked about a ton before, but correct me if I'm wrong. You were a pro skateboarder first. Did you bust your leg and then that's what got you really into music and songwriting? Correct me if I'm
Oh,
wrong.
oh yeah. Yeah, I grew up skateboarding and I had like some sponsors and stuff. I wasn't a professional, I wasn't as good as the people who I admired, but a lot of my friends at the time were turning pro. And so I was on that. I wanted to be on that path.
Hmm.
And I was pushing it hard, jumping down bigger rails, like, if it was every day or something, I'd be jumping down like a 10-stair handrail or something. And so eventually that kind of, I just landed wrong one day. But even still, I landed wrong and I thought, you break bones, it's like part of the thing. And so I was like, I'll be back in a couple months. But then it was about 2 years of recovery where I was in a wheelchair and it shattered my leg really bad to where I was kind of grateful to even walk again because it wasn't healing and it rebroke a couple times. So during that time is when I started writing songs. And I had to like slow down enough because I was always really active. I was outside just skating and doing that. And so I never really sat down enough to be able to
Yeah.
be introspective enough to write a song.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, a beautiful accent, perhaps. I mean, I don't know what the career span of pro skateboarders are, but rock and roll, you can rock till you're old as shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, you can I mean, you can rock till whatever age you can rock till.
So did you take that kind of adrenaline, that like, I don't know if it's workaholicism or adrenaline junkiism from skateboarding? Were you able to translate that into music? I mean, I guess you already kind of said that in the fact that you were playing 260 times a year. It sounds like you went pretty hard right away.
It built into that. It built into that, but I definitely think that there was a discipline that I took from it, self-discipline that I didn't really learn in school, because I spent more time breaking into I actually really think I probably spent more time breaking into other school campuses, skateboarding
Yeah,
and
nice.
on their schools than I did at my own school. And so but I would be in parking lot till like midnight every night, just like working on tricks, and then it's a thing that got me up and did all these things. And there was I had to learn that discipline myself. And so I think during that time, there was self-discipline that was really implemented uh, into my practice. And so, that being said too, um, that I realized as I got older too, I also, you have to take a break. You got to give yourself time to process that stuff too. So I think that's been the biggest thing, as I've continued to grow, is giving myself the breaks and the time to process. Because otherwise, you're just muscling through it, and
For
that
sure.
works. That works to a certain point.
Tell me about like early touring, weird shows, weirdest tours, most fucked up venue. Anything come to mind where you're like, this is funny. I can't believe this is a day in my life right now.
There's a lot. I mean, man, I guess I just have to retrace some of those. Well, I did a tour with Oasis.
Oh, no shit. Nice.
Yeah. And so that was pretty cool. I mean, but I do remember that I was in we did a tour all across Canada, and we did a tour across the United States. And then there was a big show that we were playing at Madison Square Garden. And so I was like, all right, we're playing Madison Square Garden. I have some time to go get some food over in Little Italy. So, we have like, I don't know, it's like hour and a half or 2 hours before I go on. I'm like, oh, it's not too far. I'm looking at the map. I'm like, okay, I'll just jump over and grab some food. So I'm there and eating my food, looking at the watch. I'm like, all right, well, it's getting pretty close. It's getting pretty tight, but I still haven't got my main course yet. So,
Oh God.
uh, so, so then we're eating. Finally, it comes out. I think I have like 10 minutes to get back to Madison Square Garden. And I'm just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna miss my set at Madison Square Garden. And so then I'm like sweating. I'm like calling my manager at the time, and I'm like, I'm on my way. He's like, where the fuck are you at? And I'm like, no, I'm gonna be there. And I'm traditionally late, I'm late to things, so which is never really the best thing, but when you're playing a show like that, it's probably good to be on time. And so we're rushing over there, and I make it. Somehow I make it. Like I just like talk to this taxi cab driver. He like skirts all around. Then I like jump out, run up there, and then I'm like get to the side of the stage, and I'm like right there, right on time. And like no one's there. Like no one's
Yeah.
there, ready, waiting. Like I'm like, oh, I made it. Cool. Maybe they're running a little late. And so I'm standing there for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then my manager comes to that side of the stage. He goes, where the fuck are you? We've been waiting on the other side of the stage for you.
Oh
You're fucking
geez.
late. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I get on stage, I start playing, and I'm just like, I feel I'm already kind of like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You got to jump up there in front of all those people and play this thing. And then meanwhile, too, like Liam and Noel are just standing on the side of the stage, just like looking at me with their heads cocked back. And
Just just not loving that you're late.
I don't know. I think actually I was really nervous to talk to them for that reason for a long time. And then eventually I felt horrible and I apologized. And they're like, where you been at, mate? They're like, we wanted you to come back have a Guinness with us. And I was like, oh,
Nice.
fuck. All right,
Yeah,
cool.
you fucked yourself, Matt Costa. Well, I
Yeah.
assume you shared a few Guinnesses throughout the tour with those fellas.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
Did they get rowdy? I mean, that's probably what everyone wants to hear, right? Any
Uh,
good backstage stories?
no, they were calm. They were cool. It was pretty, they kept their distance between each other. But it was pretty neat too to hear Liam every night. He would just be warming up like in the room next to me. There are these little partitions, wherever we're at. And so I'd hear him
Hmm.
kind of running through his songs with an acoustic guitar playing his songs. And
Yeah,
normally when he gets on stage, he just jumps up with a mic and a tambourine or
sure.
something. But I heard him kind of do these, speaking of earlier in the conversation, just like really stripped down versions of stuff off the cuff.
Cool.
Able to hear that was
Yeah.
pretty.
I mean, that must have the whole thing must have felt surreal, you know. I don't think they've toured in decades, but yeah, one of the great rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
Was Noel as funny as he is in interviews?
Yeah. Yeah. But also too, it's I think they turn it on a little bit for that. So
Oh, I mean, they're both in character. Like
yeah.
I follow their reels a bit and like, yeah, they're it's anything adversarial. It's just like it's so over the top, um particularly Liam. He's just so over the top, like just being the character of an asshole. I don't know if he actually is an asshole, but that's certainly his interview persona, and it is pretty funny.
I love the one of him. He's in the room with a bunch of kids. I don't know. I forget. I don't even know what it's called, but there's like a bunch of kids, and there's like a classroom full of kids, and they're interviewing him. And
Oh, that's fun.
his response to that are pretty classic. I can't think of anything offhand, but I guess if you just type in Liam Gallagher and classroom full of kids, you'll find some fun stuff.
That sounds brilliant. Are you do you go down the doom scroll much? Any pages you follow on social media or the internet that have been cracking you up?
What's the? I mean, my girlfriend just turned me on to this. There's like some little viral stuff that happens. There was one, there's a singer he wrote a song called The Dirt Man.
Okay.
It's like some little bossa nova song. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's just stuck in my head, that one now. So I feel like I'm afraid to touch the guitar because I'm just going to do a version of that.
Oh, there you go.
But
Yeah, I've been
Yeah. What about you?
I've been real obsessed with like Jurassic type animals like captured on film. Like, there'll be like a lake sturgeon that'll swim up next to this guy's little boat, and it's like this horrifying dinosaur, or like tiger fights bear. I'm like a little
Sick.
kid on there. Show me
Uh,
like alligator fights lion, or hippos chasing dudes and them like jumping over the fence at the split second before they get chomped. Like that's been my jam lately.
well, yeah. I mean, that's it's wild stuff. Have you seen the one of the kangaroo where he's like trying to drown this guy's dog? It's an older one.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a classic. The
Like, oh,
best
my dog.
Australian. Yeah.
Yeah, that
And he
one's good.
squares, he squares up and boxes the kangaroo.
Oh my God, that kangaroo is so buff. He's so
Just a
buff.
No, they're jacked. They're so freaky looking. It's like a deer on steroids.
I have a little fact though for that because I was curious as to why the kangaroo was doing that. And so like naturally the kangaroos in order to like defend their whatever you call a group of kangaroos, a bounce of kangaroos or whatever you call them, I don't know. But they traditionally like the dingoes would like go and kind of attack kangaroos. So they just kind of have it ingrained um
Are those
in
wild
them.
dogs, dingoes?
Yeah, they're like the coyotes of Australia.
Oh, okay, nice,
So
nice.
yeah, they're wild dogs. So they would just like throughout history, they would just like kind of learn to just
Oh.
drown these dingoes to protect themselves. So now when they see like pet animals, they're just like they obviously are gonna try to go drown people's dogs.
Oh no
That's,
shit, because I saw that video and I saw the kangaroo had the dog in like a strangle chokehold, but
yeah.
I didn't see water there, so I didn't know he was trying to drown the dog.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a bit. Would you square off with a kangaroo if it like got in your intimate space?
Hell no. Those things are gnarly. They got claws and stuff too. Man, no, that guy was. I mean, yeah,
Do
that's
you guys have any wild creatures where you live in Laguna Beach? I mean, there's a lot of enough people down there where you're pretty safe, but you got mountain lions and stuff, right?
yeah. Yeah, I live in the hills here too. There's like I kind of live back up to this nature preserve, Greenbelt. So
Nice.
I'll see bobcats and stuff in my yard, coyotes
Okay.
howl at night, that kind of stuff.
How big are bobcats?
Like bigger than a uh maybe like a coyote size or a medium sized dog, the bigger bobcats. We don't have lots of mountain lions here, but a couple like I don't know. In this range, there's no mountain lions. Maybe one I'll kind of sneak over here sometimes, but you don't got to worry about that. Where are you at?
I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, that's right.
So
Okay.
Wisconsin doesn't have much that can stomp you. I think we have moose at the tall tip north of the state, an occasional mountain lion sighting, wolves way up there, but I've never seen anything too crazy. I jumped in the lake just before I'm talking to you, and occasionally I'll see a big weird fish there, but I never open my eyes underwater because it's too scary.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Water creatures just, I mean, they fascinate me. I can remember being a little kid and like going to the library and looking at encyclopedias of like deep sea fish in like first grade and just like being obsessed with it and loving it. Like I'll research that all day, but yeah, when it comes to swimming, it's not interested.
Yeah, it's good to see them at a distance or not know that they're there when the things are brushing against your feet.
Oh, yeah, I don't even want to think about it. What do you do now for exercise, mindfulness outside of music?
Um, well, I still skate and I kind of like in the last number of years, like 3 years or something, I started kind of just pushing that a little bit more just because someone had left a skateboard in my trunk and I was at a show and I had some time to kill during one of the sound checks and I kind of started at it and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I just kind of kept I just kind of was like, oh, I think I can do this. I'd kind of like been kind of doing some physical therapy and exercising before that. That kind of got myself ready for it. And so now I try to do that at least once or twice a week. Um, and then also meditate too. I like to meditate. That helps.
You do it every day?
I'd like to. Maybe like at least 3 times a week.
10 minutes, 20 minutes? What's the dosage?
Probably about 20 minutes.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just hopped back on the meditation train. I'm like 2 weeks in, but it's been kind of a relief because it gives you a place to go in your brain. You know, you feel like you have some control over it after those stretches of just I don't know about you, but I get like pretty crippling anxiety and particularly around like vocal stuff and like voice loss phobia and all this stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like mostly irrational, psychological, but yeah, so that's been a good option so I can kind of get out of the turbine when the thoughts start to spiral rather than just like, you know, sometimes exercise and not drinking coffee aren't enough on its own. You have to sit in a chair for 20 minutes and do nothing.
Yeah, you got to reset. I think that stuff's really, I mean, that stuff's the most important to me. I found that I think that that's the thing is that when I kind of learned those like those feelings within all the tools that I've used throughout my life, music and all that too. When you get into the zone in music, you're in that space. That's the goal. So it's nice to be able to be reminded to how to find that place using your body as the tool
Yeah,
instead of
that's well
just like
said.
instead of having to rely on that. And then when you come to whatever you're doing, like whatever your choice of instrument is, not even musical, but
Hmm.
then you can tap into that, and I think you could be more effective at life. So
What was like the toughest year for you mentally? I feel like everyone has like a year they're like that was a tough one. What was yours and like what kind of brought you out of it? What helped move the needle to start feeling good again?
um yeah, what was that? I mean, uh yeah, I had some rough years in the last number of years. There was some trying things. Nothing that I'll really go into right now, but I
Sure.
will say that but yeah, I do think that um yeah, how would I what exactly pulled me out of it? I guess I mean, yeah, I guess um therapy and meditation did. I mean, I think that those things really gave me a place to like kind of step outside of myself and just be like and not hold on to what my own narrative was. And
Hmm.
really simple stuff. I know that's really just kind of basic stuff, but I do think that it's easy to get caught up in the unconsciousness of that, and I
Well, yeah, I
think
mean,
it's really detrimental.
therapy and meditation are like the two go-tos, you know, but they're also, I feel like the two hardest things to do, you know, like getting on the phone, scheduling therapy, getting the right therapist that fits, consistently going, sticking with it. And the same with meditation. It's like there's very few things to me harder than just like trying not to think, you know? So even if
Yeah,
you can just get a tiny bit good at it or just even trying, it just goes such a long way.
yeah, I think that it was helpful because um once I started to like let go of a lot of things that I thought served me, um, then I realized that maybe a fraction of it did, like 5%, and the other 95% of it was really inhibiting me. And that, I don't think that that's anything that is completely resolved. That's something that is all, it's all, that stuff is always accumulating, or there's new ways that comes in. So I think just continuing to practice that and being reminded of that is something that's been a huge part of my life, and I try to implement because the thing is I could sit here and say whatever examples, some of these, whatever these things are, but that's just my thing, and people can associate, maybe just be like, oh well, I don't relate to that because that's their situation. And so I think just as you know a, as a blanket thing, whatever the situation is, they're all the same. They're all the same to the individual and varying at varying degrees. And so however we choose to like accept that,
Mm.
then I had a moment where I was like actually down in Mexico. I did this film called Don de los Terremotos, and I was on this mountaintop, and I was there with like these shamans. And in this moment, I didn't take any drugs. I was completely sober, and there was also the house at the bottom of the hill that Maria Sabina she's a mushroom shaman down in Mexico that she lived in and turned a lot of people on, but she also had her family still lives there and they still do these ceremonies. And so, but I was with a group of like 15 people, grown men, and we get up there and they do the ceremony and we're in this really holy space. And just all of us like are crying. And I just, there was a part of me in that moment that it was before I kind of was turned on to anything like that. And I just knew that there was a massive part of me that I had to let go of. And it was in that place where I was like, I don't know what it is yet. I didn't even fully understand the depth of what it was, but I knew in that moment that I had begun some process and some journey of letting go of something that I had to discover it. I had to go down that path. And I think it was a really important place. And I think that, different people experience that at different points in their life, hopefully, and if you're open to it. So
Oh, that's a beautiful story. I mean, how often does a grown man get to cry with 15 other grown men at the same time? That's not like a funeral or something, you know what I
I know.
mean? That's
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's never happened to me. I would love for that to happen. I don't cry enough, Matt Costa. I gotta do it. It's
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
it's massive. I feel like I cry once a year and every time I do, I'm like, that was the answer. I no longer feel like I'm in brain prison, you know?
There it is. I know. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to have a good cry.
Yeah, I just bought this I was in a kind of a mental trough, a couple months ago and I bought this like anxiety workbook and I was like
Hmm.
this isn't gonna do anything. This is pretty dumb. It was like 10 bucks on jeffbezos.com. And so I'm working through it, but it has you list like 3 days in a row, you list like everything you did in the day and then
Yeah.
you rank 1 to 10 how much you enjoy it and 1 to 10 how much it benefited you more or less. And that was actually pretty useful because I was able to pinpoint shit that like A doesn't move the needle, B doesn't bring me any joy, and then you can kind of chop those out of your day, and boom, you have like 6 to 10 more hours a week or whatever it might be. And it just takes enormous strain. Something as simple as just like citing, your day to day and eliminating kind of the bullshit that you think you need to do because you've been doing it for so long, but you don't have to do it.
Totally. Yeah. I find also too, even on like on a, yeah, those habits are really hard to break. And I even think it's like, even my reactions to sometimes this is even really simpler, but even my reactions to like food and things too, where there'll be a food that I was opposed to when I was a kid. And I'm not opposed to it now. Like I enjoy it, but my initial reaction sometimes is still one of adversity. But I know that I like it. And so
Hmm.
but I just find myself falling into that. And I have to like be like, no, wait a second. Like I know I reacted that way, kind of in a questionable mode, but I actually enjoy it. So I need to like, you need to retrain these like instinctual things that come up first. And I think that it's kind of like that because once you do, you like if you don't, then all of a sudden you don't try a lot of things, or maybe you find yourself wasting 6 to 7 hours a week on something where you're like, wow. And just being able to like write it down or acknowledge it or something, that's really cool. I'm gonna use your
Yeah,
techniques.
do it. It's not mine. It's some psych man in Pakistan or something, but he's good.
Okay. Yeah,
Whatever his
yeah,
name
cool.
is. Yeah,
Cool.
I lost my train of thought. Had something, let it slip. It's now gone, Matt Costa.
It'll come
Um,
back. It'll come back.
while I'm thinking, where are you going? You got some dates coming up? We can punt for the people.
Well, I'm actually at home for right now. There's a couple different film stuff I'm working on, and then I think in the beginning of next year, I'm gonna head down to Australia and do some shows down there.
Nice.
But for the meantime, I've just got like been I'm working on some shorts with Rourke, some stuff I was in Sardinia for. I did some short documentary stuff with them. And also there's another documentary called Volcano Island that my friends at Fielder Films have done. And they went up to the Aleutian Islands. And so I'm working on scoring some music for them on this Arctic surf trip that they did.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
So are these all like independently funded films? I mean, I don't
Uh,
know anything about the film world. I imagine I know it's expensive as hell. How do you Are there just like people that believe in the films that will fund them? How does it work? How do you get films out into the world after you make them?
I mean, I think it's a bunch of different ways. I think a lot of it, there's some sponsors and stuff too. You know,
Yeah.
some people sponsor it. I really think a lot of it is people just having a vision and just being able to, kind of doing a lot of people will save up stuff from commercial work or something, and they'll be like, okay, I have this money here and this is my dream project.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do this. And they'll do that like, a couple times, every couple years or something, and sometimes longer if it's a bigger project, but they'll just kind of work on that stuff and then, follow through with these really beautiful passion projects.
Beautiful. What's touring Australia like?
You gotta have I was gonna make a bad joke, but um it's been a while since I've toured down there. I was just down there recently, just like on a vacation down there. And so but yeah, let me think about this for a second here. I uh I actually I've had some great memories actually in Byron Bay. They have a blues festival there. And so I'm not playing at the Byron Bay Blues Festival, but I did play a number of years ago, and on the plane ride out, I sat next to Dr. John, which was pretty cool.
Who's that?
He's a he's a legendary he's a legendary songwriter, pianist, or like keyboard player. He wrote um he wrote a number of songs and was also in like The Last Waltz with the band, and
Mm,
he's a New Orleans kind of voodoo master.
okay, cool.
And so I sat next to him and got some great wisdom from him when I was on that trip. So no matter where I'm at, a lot of times it's like there's a lot of great takeaways, but that was a pretty cool experience in Australia. And
Oh, beautiful.
and Vegemite, of course. And you could just do a little bit of Vegemite with a little bit of butter. Don't overdo it on the Vegemite. Maybe go a little bit heavier on the butter.
God, Vegemite sounds so shot. What is it? It's like spam in a can made of vegetables or what?
No, no. I mean, I guess it's in the shape of a spam container, but it's a yeasty sort of addition to toast.
All
So
right, yeah.
yeah, it's I think in small doses with butter on a piece of sourdough or something. I think actually probably white bread is what you would do traditionally down there. That's
Yeah, I
good.
mean, I thought Nutella was crazy when I heard of it, and now I'm obsessed with it, you know. You go overseas and they put some pretty cool, weird stuff on their bread, you know?
Oh man, I'll just take spoonfuls of Nutella. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just candy.
It's like a placebo secret hack. It's like I'm not actually eating a brick of chocolate because it's in the form of something like I would spread moderately healthily on my toast.
Totally.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
It's been great having you on. Great talking to you, Matt Costa. Hope to see you in real life someday soon. Why don't we'll play a tune to go out. Can we play? Can I pick, or you want to pick, or what do you think?
Uh, yeah, if you want to pick maybe a newer one that I had done, actually, the one song that I wrote that has to do with that situation on the mountain is a song called "The Holy Mountain."
Okay, let's do that one.
All right, there you go.
Cool, Matt Costa, Dirt from the Road. Thanks, brother. Great to see you in real life. Much love.
You too.